question.
We sign it. We're all.
No, I know that wasn't my budget, but does anybody have the capital plan that you guys had up on the board last week? Because I never got one. Latest.
I put my capital plans together today and I don't have it. Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
Nobody's got it?
I don't.
You're not looking at it tonight, right?
No.
No.
We had
'Cause I had a
our
couple-
questions answered last week.
I just want to confirm the numbers.
Hey, John?
I didn't see where it went from 71,681 up to 84 million over the weekend. So I think the funding total might be off from the report total.
Well, we're not, I think, my sense is that there will be more questions tonight than will allow for the passage of the budget next week anyway, so you have some time.
Okay.
What do you give me that smile for?
Well, I've only got one change to make for the mayor's budget, the council budget so far.
Right.
Okay.
But I think what happened was,
Election expense has to go up.
We talked about that. Yep.
That's it. That's the only one I've got so far.
yeah,
So I can roll it. Yes. I can roll from where we are. Actually, I requested it. No, I can't do so. Anyway. Just
Okay.
take one adjustment, and then we'll
Yeah.
keep track of the other.
I think we're,
That's enough.
But we can put both
okay.
budget and capital plan in the same resolution
Right.
this year instead of doing two separate.
Exactly.
like last year.
that's right.
Just want to make sure the report put it in
Yeah,
balance.
but what I'm saying, yes.
All right.
You're good at that.
Rochelle?
If I wasn't, you would not be doing this job.
Okay. You may need to text me in the morning to remind me, okay?
On Monday.
Because I'm gonna do my best to disengage.
Over
Otherwise,
the
I
week.
feel like I'm honestly, I know I don't have to search myself, but I feel like I'm that close to
That's right, I said, I woke up at 2 o'clock, I was up until 4:45.
I'm a wimp,
So
I know.
Thinking, no, thinking about this, thinking about everything.
I'm just, I'm not discouraged.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was recapping. I actually have, you know how I like paper? I have a big box ready to go to shred day. I was pulling stuff out of it last night at all at night, looking for ideas. So
It's like one step forward, 2 steps back.
that's 11 times in the DRI, so why are we doing it out of the general fund? Way, oh yeah.
That's a really good
Yeah, why are we
one.
doing that? I mean, that's actually be overcharged.
Okay.
Oh, good, because I'm always driving up there. I mean, and we always talk about
That's such a good
pavilion.
thing.
You have to.
Yeah.
We talked about the streetscapes. You got 2.6 million.
Good for you.
I'm not gonna do it. I'm tired too. But yeah.
I know when I get those texts at
overtime.
I know when I get those texts at 9:45.
Joshua,
I'm just warming up.
35.
Peter, I'm on a cliff.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending the Governance Strategy and City Operations Committee meeting November 1st. We will get things started with a roll call, please.
Councilor Cressler?
Here.
Councilor Armstrong?
Here.
Councilor Dowdle?
Here.
Councilor Cressler?
Here.
Counselor Renfro's here too.
Oh, sorry, Councilor. I wrote it twice.
Now you feel my pain, getting left out.
Hey, this is
So
what
we
we
get
call
things-
Counselor O'Connell. Again.
We always get things started at these meetings with any persons wishing to address the council, and it's on agenda items only at this point. So if anyone would like to speak to the committee, then this is your chance. Seeing nobody, we will move on to reports from department representatives and discussions with councilors. So first we have a report from the city clerk's office of all monies received. It seems pretty standard. And 2, the council will hold 2019 budget sessions on assessment and any follow-up questions for departments. So is that something that we're doing now? Or yeah.
We can do now.
Is that, would you guys like to do that now?
I don't, if you want to do do it now.
Or do you want to wait for
Tim
the
is
meeting?
here, I mean, like,
Okay, let's do 10.
Okay, perfect. You are up, sir. Thank you so much for being here.
Good afternoon, everybody. For those of you who don't know who I am, I'm your assessor.
Thank you. Okay. So I guess anything that you think we should know, or
Well, let me just go through some of the things here. In 2018, almost a year ago, it was November 13th of 2017, the city contracted with the county for my services for assessment services. So the assessment department is different than other city departments in that services rendered or funded through a contract with Clinton County based upon the actual cost and the number of tax parcels in the city. With no historical precedent for operational figures, the 2018 budget was derived from projected costs related to the services in the contract. The 2018 contract price was budgeted at $130,278. This was $25.59 per parcel. Multiplied by the number of parcels, at that time it was 5,091 on the 2017 tax roll. The actual cost and the amount billed to the city for 2018 was $105,843. So basically, we had a better handle on the expenses, and it turned out to be less than was predicted. Some of the things that we were able to do, we were able to move the assessment office out of City Hall. Something about the mayor wanting the, wine cellar for his office, but that was just conjecture.
yes, it was.
So a new city assessor's office was created in the county buildings to store all the corresponding files and records. With this change, the taxpayers and customers were able to get and seek information Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. till 5 p.m. It's a larger space than downstairs was, so because we've got more people working there, we've been able to pretty well eliminate any waiting times for people that are there. If there is a wait, they've got a very nice place to be able to sit and wait. So all pertinent documents are now digitally scanned and stored better to facilitate access and retention. It's the way the world is going, and we are working hard to do that. The changes to the office have been well received. However, some of the senior citizens have expressed that it is hard to find parking and it's a long walk for them. That's probably about the only downside there has been to moving to the county building. As far as the 2019 budget goes, having operated for roughly a year and knowing what the actual costs were during that year, the 2019 budgeted amount of the contract is $119,415. The largest percentage of the increase is attributed to having an employee for a full year as opposed to part of 2018. The remainder is the step increases in the employee contract and the employee health care insurance rate hikes. The personnel changes for 2019 are essentially, the employee was hired in March, so there was a smaller amount of cost related to that. The 2019 reflects the full year cost for that. Just a little historical perspective. Myself and the employees of the Clinton County Real Property Office are committed to providing the best service for the citizens of the city of Plattsburgh. I do not know exactly what the previous cost the city spent on assessment services, but I do know that this contract thus far has been a savings to the city. The county legislature has directed that if there is an increase in municipalities participating in the assessment services, the cost of the city would decrease. I shall endeavor to seek any means to save so that the current and future costs are reduced and reflected in the contract. It has been a pleasure to work with other city departments to provide them and the citizens with our services.
Thank you.
Well, I'd just like to thank you for making it as seamless a transition as possible. And, it seems that the level of service has remained excellent, and we couldn't be happier. I couldn't be happier.
You're all welcome to swing by anytime.
Maybe have any other questions?
I do.
Okay.
The first year was $25.59 per parcel.
Yep.
And that's where we had the $132.78.69.
Correct.
Now we're entering into the second year of the
Yes.
term.
Well, for 2019, it'll be, yes.
Right, and we were going to be at $26.10 per parcel.
And
And now what are we going to be at?
it's The 2018 was 5,108 parcels, so it would be 105,843 divided by 5,102.
Because the 3-year contract that we entered into, and I see where it went less, because we talked, it was about 25,000 less. So I'm just wondering, since we went 25.59 per parcel originally, where were we at per parcel?
Originally, it was that 25.
Yes, and then we went to,
59. And then the actual amount would be, whatever that 100, well, it actually, no, because that's the 2018 actual amount. So it would be the 105,843 divided by
Okay.
5,000.
okay. So it would suggest then that the second year contract won't be the 2610 as originally calculated.
It all depends on what the actual cost is and what the parcel count is going to do. The parcel count has been going up,
Appreciate it. Okay.
so,
Okay.
and the county legislature has also said that if there are any other municipalities that enter into assessment services with us, that we will be able to offset some of that cost and save money for us.
Is that being, say, promoted throughout the county, that others join? I mean, I know they have elected assessors.
It's all part of shared services, and if they wish to participate in shared services, they can do so. I do know that for all of us in the assessment field, our 6-year annual, or not annual, 6-year reappointment is going to be up in September of 2019. That is an opportunity
okay.
when municipalities do have an opportunity to change their assessors without going through a lot of rigmarole.
Okay.
So they all have the opportunity at that point in time to decide whether they're going to continue with doing what they're doing or look at other opportunities.
Okay.
So we will have a better idea, I think, as we go.
September 19th. Okay, thanks, Tim. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for being here.
Really appreciate you coming.
So now we'll move on to number 3, with agenda items being brought to the council from departments. Maybe we can, let's see. I guess maybe we can do it this way. Are there any items that you don't need any discussion on, or that you feel pretty confident about?
I'm good.
Good with everything?
I guess, I mean, when we get into the work session, I'd like to go into executive session regarding item 4.
Okay.
Item 4?
Item 4.
And there's one other
Okay,
executive session item to do, but that was one of them.
okay.
Do we have number 2?
I think it was an email. So if no one has any other concerns about any of the other agenda items, then I guess I would move to.
What's number 1?
It's the manager's compensation, or no, it's the fire department
And Blue.
and police.
It's the manager's
That's the
compensation package.
Compensation.
Well, that's on the table. How is this different? This is just with the document that corporate counsel prepared, is that the difference?
For the management compensation package was the document that you all prepared and you worked with Dean on.
Right.
We met with the managers today and there's a few misunderstandings that I think were cleared up. Dean has done all the appropriate language and modified it accordingly.
Yeah, well, I think we're gonna table that, Mr. Mayor, because we're not up to speed, and I don't feel comfortable voting on it when I'm not up to speed, so, I mean, I think we're gonna have to delay it another week.
Or it's in front of you.
Yeah, I'm gonna need more time. I think my subcommittee members concur.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, so then, do we, I guess what's the protocol? Do we not move it to the agenda or not approve it from this committee?
Well, I
Just
mean,
to-
it's already on
It's
the
awkward because
agenda.
the original language was on the agenda.
Right.
So don't move this
So
to the
can we
agenda?
not move this and then table,
If you did
continue to
move this,
table
then-
7A from, in the
Then that
regular
would-
meeting?
That would be the default, yeah.
Okay, let's do that.
But that also, now there's a domino effect because the procurement policy, well, the procurement policy is standalone, but the handbook implements the compensation policy. So we're gonna table this and not act on the comp policy, then we can't act on the handbook.
Okay.
We could act on the procurement policy.
So we can move it forward and table it, is that what you're saying?
Or if we don't move it forward, it's.
Don't move it forward, we just
Joe
have it
has
all
to-
for next week. We could have,
So move it forward and then table it.
I mean, alternatively, we could take this time and work through those changes, unless you guys really wanted more time to digest it. The changes themselves are fairly discrete compared to the previous variations on this document.
well,
Interesting.
No, it says this replaces
Could you-
tabled item. So where is the tabled item at this point?
It's in the agenda. It was
Okay.
moved forward a couple weeks ago.
Yes,
Right.
right.
I guess can we
So
go
we can-
over what the misunderstandings were and what the changes were at this point? If,
Or that Monday.
here, yeah, or we can discuss it. And just table it for another week,
Okay.
Yeah.
so that we're all on the same page.
I feel like that's probably a good decision, and no one feels rushed. We have a week to correspond with Dean and clear up any misunderstandings or for further clarification.
Right, and rather than negotiate it, or not negotiate it, work it from the floor, I'd rather wait.
So then, we can make a motion to move 2 through 10 to the agenda,
But I think,
or no?
I think you should still, there's no circumstance where we're going to be adopting that tabled resolution. So there's no reason to put it out there, the one that was put forward 3-4 weeks ago.
So then move everything.
So at some point, you might as well move it forward and then table it at that
And then-
point, if that's
Okay,
your
so
intention.
then I guess I'll make a motion to move 1 through 10, to approve and move to the agenda.
Second it.
Oh, yeah, can't.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Let's see, so any old business? I don't have any old business. Any new business?
I'm actually going to take the liberty of inviting someone that I conferred with regard to a suggestion having to do with our RFP process,
RP for,
the Jerky Street parking lot development, and I'd like to invite Doug Buttdorf to the podium.
sure. Hey Doug. Thanks for being here.
Yeah. So I'm Doug Buttdorf, 64 Trafalgar Drive, Plattsburgh, New York, 12901. Rochelle and I discussed, and I've been watching a lot of the process that's happening, with the Stronger Towns organization and communication about the RFP, communication about, what's happening and how much, whether or not the community had a chance to participate in the process and et cetera, et cetera. And at the end of the day, what's happening is that a development project is going to take place, and the state is going to fund the development project. And that, what has happened in the past has happened in the past, and there's nothing we can do to change the history of what's happened. So water has gone under the bridge, and what we have to do is figure out how to go forward to make sure that the community does feel involved, and to make sure that there's a bridge toward community involvement and some sort of, facility by which there is assurances from an awarded developer that there will be some benefit for the community associated to the project. So what I spoke with Rochelle about, and what I've suggested to the Community Development Office in May, was that there would be consideration of what's called a community benefit agreement, or a host community benefit agreement, tied into the RFP, requiring the developer to negotiate with a consortium of community organizations a binding contract that stipulates and sets in stone the specific benefits that will be achieved for the community as a result of the development project and paid for in part of the development project. So we can look at the whole project as a benefit for the community because there's money being spent and there's an exciting opportunity for things happening in the community, but there may be some very specific things, such as protections of specific types or amounts of parking, protections of specific, affordable housing, access to specific area or way to access the river, which what I understand from organizations like Stronger Towns Initiative, as well as some things I've read on the internet, people feel like they haven't been heard in that process. Reality is we are where we are. Development is going to happen. Progressively, it is probably a good thing. But maybe what we could do is interrupt the RFP process, amend the actual RFP that's in place, include a provision that requires a community benefit agreement, or at least stipulate specific areas or terms by which a community benefit agreement would be negotiated, and then re-enter the RFP process, delay it maybe a week, so that those organizations which agree to a CBA hold a higher weight in the review process, and potentially we could then have a designated CBA put in place. Historically, there is precedent legally in the state of New York for CBAs that include in the North Country CBAs that were put in place for windmill projects that happen in the North Country. They all started around the Staples Center in Los Angeles when community organizations got together and said, you're tearing down all these tracts of housing. We want you to make sure that you make these commitments to the community and the community benefits in these ways. And the developer, realizing that they're a community member, did those things. They made those agreements and they made those binding contractual relationships and agreements. And I think that the kind of contractor and the kind of developer that we want in our community is the kind of developer that would be interested and willing to negotiate a CBA. So that's what I'd like to recommend. I don't know if this is the right body necessarily to do that, but that's where I'd like to lean.
I
Would that
invited.
have to, would that change the RFP at all?
I'm not aware of the RFP legal process enough to know, but I think that could be investigated fairly quickly to see if that would be something that could.
I'm interested in pursuing the question of whether at this point in the process, and nobody needs to respond, we can discuss this at a different time when we have time to look at all of the variables that I know that you're up against, Matt, in terms of working with the state. But the idea is that this could amend the RFP process while it's already out there. I mean, that's the only question I have. How can you amend something when it's already been sent out?
It can be amended and reposted with a new date. And it's
Right.
happened in the past. It can be done again.
Right.
It seems to me. I mean, I'm certain someone else could, find out for certain, but I know that that's happened in the past through the community development office. So I think it could probably be.
Well, this proposition has piqued my interest. I'm interested in working with the Community Development Office, the Mayor's Office, and the Council on whether or not this is some way in which we can put in a certain amount of assurance that will allay concerns about how this project might impact the stakeholders downtown. And so I will investigate it. I ask that the council look at the information that I forwarded to you concerning this idea. As it turns out, Doug, I was speaking with the mayor this week, and as the RFPs, when they do come in, the council, the mayor has designated the council as the body that will host public hearings about what the various developers propose. So there will be opportunities for public feedback, but the question remains, if we were to agree to ask for this kind of amendment to the RFP, how would it go forward?
Does it have to go into the RFP?
Yeah, that's the point. I mean, we're under some tremendous
That's my question.
timeframes with this RFP. There's nothing prohibiting the developer to make an offer which could include a CBA or some kind of host
So
community.
you're saying that at this point, your recommendation would be to let the RFP process unfold the way it has, but that we could insert a requirement
Upon selection?
upon selection?
Whether you use the phrase insert a requirement or use that as one of your criteria when you evaluate a potential.
So the
Proposition.
criteria by which the submitted proposals will be evaluated and the weighting of those different components of those proposals has not been set in stone and has not been created. So one thing that the common council, who will be the one that will approve.
Vote on it, yeah.
well, can say a CBA is an exceptionally important document, and that while it's not in the RFP, the council can make it be known that
Okay.
if coming through the council, CBA documents or proposals that include CBA terms or initiatives within the proposal will receive, a higher.
Right.
a higher recommendation.
And that's the kind of determination we can make, since we'll be basically evaluating them and developing that criteria in concert with this community development
And
office.
frankly,
So-
the RFP may say that already, because I recall our consultant indicating that there shall be adequate assurance from the developer.
Right.
Very generic language, but what's adequate assurance would certainly be some kind of binding contract requiring
Good.
them to commit to certain
And then,
community-based activities.
so just identifying what consortium organization could do that negotiation to create that binding agreement.
Thank
That would
you.
be-
And we have until November 14th, is that correct?
I think they kind of told.
They have until
They
November
have-
14th to submit.
Right.
So they have 2 weeks to say, we'll agree to a CBA under these basic terms as
Okay.
people who are proposing.
And at one time, did we not talk about an extension beyond November 14th? Well, that's not to you, Doug. If nobody, or if we didn't like what came forward, or if there were variables?
If the council chooses not to make an award based on any proposals that are received, or if no proposals are received, you can speak to ESD about an extension of the RFP.
Right. If not enough come in, if we're
Right.
not happy with what we see, okay,
Right.
all right.
But I think it's important, based upon what you just said, Dean, that in the announcement that when we sent out the request for RFPs, that there is something in there along, the language along those lines that pretty much indicate that we're looking for a CBA.
I guess it's not binding ourselves to that terminology, CBA, just saying we will enter into a sufficient contract to give a reasonable assurance to the city. So I'm saying it's wordly broad enough currently to encompass this kind of agreement or some other.
And if
there's
it's,
there's-
I mean, if it's widely known and accepted practice, then the developer would be familiar with it.
Yeah. Because these goes back, there's host community agreements, there's different phrases that you would use to describe a similar type of arrangement.
Cool. Thank you,
Okay,
everybody.
thank you very much,
That's
Doug.
information, Doug.
And just to give the council frame of reference, there is language included in the RFP that states, as one of the requirements, description of how the buildings, proposed buildings and uses will add to the vitality of downtown Plattsburgh and otherwise benefit the downtown revitalization. So, again, it's loose language, but it can be construed with favor.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so any other new business?
I'll just say here, just very briefly, that I met with, where is my folder? Alexandria Elliott and Lisa Bergman, who are part of two different organizations, actually, the Climate Reality Project and one that is organized through New York State, Climate Smart Communities. And I've invited them to come to a meeting that I will be holding with the Environmental Sustainability Committee November 13th. And they will weigh in on various kinds of suggestions and formal programs that are out there to assist communities to be more environmentally responsible.
That's great. All right, well, seeing no other new business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Time we'll begin our work session now, and I'd like to entertain a move to executive session to discuss collective bargaining negotiations and pending litigation with the town of Plattsburgh.
So moved.
By Councilor Spencer, second by Councilor Armstrong. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed.
It's okay.
Good, yep.
No. Who are you? Yes, did you want to hug too, Jessica? Okay. Doesn't know how to answer it, but go ahead. Oh, really? Oh, I remember them doing that back in the days. Oh, okay.
If you don't remember, you can always get a new that was second.
Okay.
And then we got 3 personal days, 1 non-charging, 2 non-charging, 1 charging.
Probably not. I used to remember stuff like that, it's just different. Stuff. And I remember.
Anyway, from 1999, this
Okay, yeah, just that.
because the first one is really have 2 personal days,
Right.
and then you get one that charges.
What? You didn't sign them all. No, it's on the regular agenda. It's right after next year.
How are you, Ben?
Good, how are you?
Good. Got you.
It's probably because there was one. So, we had to put it after procurement, it's the little one up there, see, on page 4. Oh, my, there, but we had to use it after, because those 2 have to be for the first one. They're all- Whatever policy she had.
They have plans to try to do something across the street. I don't know if that means like on the margin. Talk about it.
Don't be giving money anywhere. He is.
That's my life.
No. Thanks. I'm tired of those all day.
Switch up again anytime, but get cats,
Look up there, I eat. But what think like Lord, just be
We've got some people that understand.
So you guys get Miller Street cleaned out. Why, you moved back to the street? Huh? But I can't find it until.
Actually, that's where I've been.
He's got the basement. Well, I think they're gonna get recorded because if they go to in 30 minutes? Okay.
Yeah.
What would you rather do? Sit here or?
Some people are.
Pretty good.
No, you have no problem with that. Can't say that.
Is that being?
Oh, yeah.
That's a nice.
It's away from the coast. I was thinking then after what, September. Well, it turned out that funny, after over a year, funny that a guy, they had a big announcement that it was actually EPA and they announced that their guy was hired on my west coast probably to take over the administration. So you put it down. The whole system. I'm thinking the guy who's down there trying to build that flash surface. Why did they tell you? So what happened was that hurricane that went up the coast, rolled water, New Bruins, surrounded by, I think, 3 rivers, all the rivers overflowed and wiped out everything in the city.
They don't care.
So they got a mess. Yeah, same thing about a year earlier, Florida, Leesburg, for a year. They got somebody, multiple hurricane people on the coast or up through the state, like down there. Dramatic Dave, is trusting the TV camera.
to leave, huh? I was like, actually, I think,
Yeah, we have. Well, we actually do this with the frost. Really? Yeah, Mary's still working. She is the
I think I'll snack the last thing.
yeah.
They are. Of course. Don't let Matt do
Really keep losing those days during the week. I have a lot less time. I went Monday, Friday, running these city as I wouldn't have said wanted back in. Yeah, well, it was funny because the first few times we interacted with each other when I was kind of like calling her Betty for help with stuff, she was like, oh, yeah, like it's nice to be out of that, but like as time went on, she's like, you do sort of start to miss it after a little while, and I was like, oh, do you think so? Politics. Molly has like the job that I got for a week. She had it fulfilled. And that's what she was saying. It's fun. But that's why I get to be downtown. I was at the airport today. A couple of layers. No, north and south. This is like.
He also said,
No, it wasn't that long.
I still use one.
Or at least they should be. Their application is into the IDA, and they should have submitted everything a couple of days ago to the town for planning. And then hopefully, after the IDA will approve their application, and they'll start demolition in December. Across the street. There's just like a couple of, not as full-time, and then there's like a couple of retrofitting maintenance. And there are people interested in the old space. Like the whole space. Well, it's right there. Because I was on an empty lot the other day when we went to the. Yeah, no, it was just an empty lot. There are people interested in buying it. Yeah, the escalators were like a big problem. Yeah, it was a really nice experience. Yeah, those flights are. I think Sky wants to do a lot more business. Patrick lined up on the plane, they sat there, Patrick lined up on the plane, and landed in Albany, and that's a week before we got back. I mean, it's fine, but it won't be a habit. And if it's not a destination work, it would be that much. That much that's what I keep hearing. Yeah, I can. I grew up there at Franklin City, so seems the same.
Do you have room for more chairs, John?
It's okay, Beth brought lifesavers today.
Well, not exactly.
Oh, I thought that.
John, tell John to come sit here.
Is he here to do that?
Stand up till I put my knees down. We adjourned the other meeting, right?
We did, yep. We can start right now.
Here's my former student.
Where is it?
So returning from an executive session to discuss pending contract with the IBEW and potential litigation with the town of Plattsburgh. No decision was made in this executive session. And let us begin our common council meeting tonight with the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Reed.
Present.
Councilor Armstrong.
Here.
Councilor Kelly.
Here.
Councilor Dowdle.
Here.
Councilor Ensel.
Here.
Councilor McFarland.
Here.
Councilor Crunchley.
Here.
Just a couple of comments. First of all, I was going to mention that by next week, by the time we come to council meetings, it'll be dark. Remember to move your clocks back this Sunday morning, but it appears to be dark already. Also, we'll have a short proclamation as well. Whereas this evening and every day, Plattsburgh stands in solidarity with the Jewish community in Pittsburgh and with people of all faiths in all cities across this country. And whereas we stand against any anti-Semitic act of hatred and violence, whereas we know that hate is un-American, and whereas we witness hate crimes that increase and threaten the harmony and tolerance of those who live here and everywhere and expect to be able to pray together in peace and safety. And whereas we hope our nation can once again become united in our shared sense of civility, tolerance, and respect, and no longer be torn apart by fear and hatred. And whereas we are all Pittsburghers tonight as we work towards a society where violence, instability, anonymous bullying and loathing and hate are more than merely condemned, but are banished, and in witness thereby hereby fix my seal in the city of Plattsburgh. I'm sure that we all feel the same. Thank you.
Resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of the common council held on October 25th, 2018 are approved and placed on file among the public records of the city clerk's office.
Moved by Councilor Kretzer, second by Councilor Ensel. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed.
Resolved that the payrolls of the various departments of the city of Plattsburgh for the week ending October 31st, 2018 in the amount of $96,299.05 are authorized and allowed, and the mayor and the city clerk are hereby empowered and directed to sign warrants drawn on the city chamber for the payment thereof.
Moved by Councilor Dowdle and Kelly, I'm sorry. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. Oh, you have in your packet electronically the reports for this week, and let me ask for committee reports beginning with governance strategy and city operations. Councilor Kretzer.
We held our meeting immediately preceding this meeting. We moved all items 1 through 10 to the agenda for approval tonight. Councilor Armstrong discussed some initiatives she's working on in regards to environmental conservation, and I think that was pretty much it. So you can refer to the video if you'd like any further details.
Thank you. City infrastructure, Councilor Ensel.
We will be meeting next week, but also in the meantime, just to update, Mother Nature needs to cooperate a little bit more so that we can finish the striping on Cornelia and also on Veterans Lane.
Thank you. Finance and Budget, Counselor Kelly, please.
Nothing too much to offer tonight, Mayor, just that it occurred to me today is November 1st, and the council would like to ask Mr. Marks if we can have our monthly report on finance and budget as soon as it's available. And we'll look at that at our next Finance and Budget Committee.
Thank you.
We greatly appreciate those reports. Thank you.
Public Safety, Counselor Dowdle.
We had our meeting last Thursday, two hot topics. The Zoning Board of Appeals, we discussed two local laws that amend the zoning ordinances, basically one involving the lot size and the other for regulations of commercial cryptocurrency. A few other things, Police Chief Ritter did indicate that there is a signed rental agreement, so they're moving forward with their Plattsburgh Police Substation. That'll be located on Margaret Street. And one of the other items we talked about was a request from the mayor for initial consideration of a city Plattsburgh employee handbook. That's all I have for that. Thank you.
And you brought up the ending of the, or not the ending, but the local law on cryptocurrency.
Yes.
We haven't ended the moratorium, but I really do
Right.
encourage you to sort out the noise law,
Yes.
which Council Ensel raised quite rightly, as soon as you possibly can, just to be fair in their deliberations.
Thank you for that, because there was some confusion over some
Yeah,
things.
and I'd like to thank the mayor for the very next day forwarding to us some suggestions about what shape that law might take.
Plattsburgh Public Library, Councilor Armstrong.
No updates.
And MLD Board President, Councilor McFarland.
No updates.
Resolved, the reports as listed are hereby ordered received, and any written reports are placed on file among the public records of the city clerk's office. Moved by Councilor Armstrong, second by Councilor Dowdle. Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. And no recommendations for boards at this time. Please continue.
Resolved that the bills offered by the Common Council for the week ending November 2nd, 2018 in the amount of $329,507.99 are authorized and allowed, and the mayor and the city clerk are hereby authorized and directed to sign warrants found in the city chamberlain for the payment thereof.
Moved by Councilor Dowdle, second by Councilor Kelly. All, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? This is an opportunity for the public to please come address the council. At this time, the public comments on agenda items only. There will be another public comment period at the end of the meeting. Seeing none, please continue.
Motion to remove item 7A from the table.
Seeing none, please continue.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the Common Council approves the adoption of a resolution amending and restating procurement policies and procedures for the city of Plattsburgh as set forth in the draft of November 1st, 2018, the entire text of which has been distributed to and read by the members of the Common Council.
Moved by Councilor Armstrong, second by Councilor Dowdle. Discussion.
Am I correct, Dean, in saying that based upon our tabling and our discussion earlier, that you suggest that this also be tabled until next week regarding, so that it would all conform with the proposed handbook?
It's entirely up to you. It's a little bit different than the manager policy, which I would suggest goes hand in hand with the employee handbook. This is also an attachment to the employee handbook, but it's also a standalone document.
Yeah.
So it's your prerogative. It was actually included as an appendix to the handbook, so I don't know if it was specifically emailed as a standalone resolution to the council, but it was.
Yeah, it was.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, as long as it's standalone, I think we can go forward.
Yeah.
Yep. I'd make a motion to table. I was just checking my email and I didn't see the procurement policy. And so I haven't had a chance to read it. I don't anticipate being against it. But at this time, I would make a motion to table it.
Okay, second?
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the Common Council approves adopting the City of Plattsburgh Employee Handbook.
Are you looking
I
for a
guess, I guess we
motion?
can't ask any questions or have discussion until it's
I'll move it.
motioned.
Moved by
Seconded.
Counselor Armstrong, second by,
Not to say you couldn't have, so I apologize, not to say you couldn't have, move it onto the table, have discussion about it, and then
And then
after those
table.
discussions, table it. Or wait till next week, whatever you prefer.
I think we
I guess
moved and
my
seconded.
feeling
who
is
was the
that
second?
if we're gonna have,
Just a second.
Dale did.
Moved by Counselor Armstrong, second by Counselor Dowdle? Okay.
I guess my feeling is that if we're gonna have this document that is certainly voluminous and all encompassing, that we should have everything in place when we put the handbook together and approve the
Including the
handbook.
management compensation.
Yeah, right. I don't think it'd be timely to pass it at this time if you haven't passed the management compensation handbook or compensation.
That
plan.
was the, kind of the leaning of the government
Right.
operations strategic planning meeting, so. Okay, so I move to table?
By Counselor Armstrong, second by Counselor McFarland. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed.
Resolved that the memorandum of agreement between the City of Plattsburgh and IBEW Local 1249 for a 5-year term retroactive to July 1st, 2017, and continuing through June 30th, 2022, shall be and hereby is ratified and approved, and the mayor shall be and hereby is authorized to execute a collective bargaining agreement containing its terms on behalf of the city.
Moved by Counselor Ansel, second by Counselor Dowdle. Discussion? To briefly summarize the terms, it had terms for a raise of up to 1.5% based on the cost of living for towns appropriate of our size in the Northeast. That was the major clause. It's a 5-year agreement. There's a potential for a reopener to discuss contracting our healthcare plans to a couple of plans. As you know, there's more expensive choice, but they're willing to have further discussions on a reopener on that. And there's some relatively minor changes having to do with compensation for premiums in retirement for medical coverage. Any further discussion or questions? Roll call.
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Dowdle?
Yes.
Counselor Ansel?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Kretzer?
Yes.
Resolved, the common council approves the homeowner's request that the city subordinate mortgage number 2008-0022081, which is attached to 39 Court Street, to a new mortgage to be made by Dannemora Federal Credit Union in the principal amount of $105,000. The appraised value of the subject property is $264,000, and the outstanding city mortgage is approximately $19,540.51, with approximately 5 years remaining on its term. The mayor is authorized to sign a subordination agreement on behalf of the city.
Moved by Counselor Kelly and second by Counselor Dowdle. Discussion?
Dean, what is exactly this trying to do?
So from time to time, we'll receive requests from homeowners who have in the past received a grant or a loan from the city of Plattsburgh. As you know, New York has a priority process where the first mortgage holder will have priority in the event of foreclosure. In this case, the city is first up, but in their refinance process, they've requested that the city be second up because that's a condition of the refinance. So as part of that analysis, we look to the value of the property, the amount that they're seeking in their mortgage from the Dannemora Federal Credit Union, look to the amount that the city is owed, look to the payment history of the mortgagee, look to the term remaining, and see if that's a fair request. This hasn't cost the city anything. The requester prepared the documentation, gave us the numbers. We did some work internally to make sure that it was a quote-unquote safe bet to be in second position, because there is adequate value in this property. In the event we were to foreclose, likely we would receive our money back, but that's unlikely in this situation.
Any further questions? Roll call.
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Dowdle?
Yes.
Counselor Ansel?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Kretzer?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the common council approves Fleet Feet Sports to hold the Ugly Sweater 5K on December 1st, 2018 at 9 a.m. on US Oval to benefit the Interfaith Food Shelf. Request to close inside lane only. US Oval insurance certificate is required.
Moved by Counselor Cresser, second by Counselor Ansel. Discussion? Roll call?
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Dowdle?
Yes.
Counselor Ensel?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Kretzer?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the common council approves Fleet Feet Sports to hold the Snowman Scramble 5K on January 12, 2019 at 9 a.m. at Lumet Park. To benefit the Elmore SPCA, street closures are not needed. The race will use Sander Avenue, O'Connell Avenue, Cogan Avenue, Dennis Avenue, Aaron Avenue, Kennedy Avenue, and Park Avenue west. And the two-loop race insurance certificate is required.
Moved by Counselor Cretzer, second by Counselor Dowdle. Discussion? Roll call?
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Dowdle?
Yes.
Counselor Ensel?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Kretzer?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the common council approves Fleet Sports to hold the Shamrock Shuffle 5K race on March 16th, 2019, or an inclement weather date of March 17th, 2019, at 9 a.m. on US Oval to benefit the CDPH Foundation. Request to close Ohio Avenue, Nevada Avenue, and Terry Gordon Bike Path. Insurance certificate is required.
Moved by Counselor Ansel, second by Counselor Cretzer. Discussion? Roll call?
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Dowdle?
Yes.
Counselor Ensel?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Kretzer?
Yes.
Resolved in
I'd
accordance
like to
with...
make a motion to waive the reading and move the resolution.
Moved by Counselor Cretzer, second by Counselor Dowdle. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Discussion on the item?
I just have a question as to how this particular entity, Fleet Feet, has become involved in these. I mean, is this? I think it's a long-standing relationship that they proposed these events. Correct?
If you're
They
looking
just
at me,
like-
I wasn't involved in scheduling and stuff, so.
Oh, okay.
They just
Well,
left.
I just like to speak on behalf, I see my former student here who owns a business and has done a very good job of creating a running culture here in Plattsburgh. If the events coordinator has the ability to engage with local businesses to set up these kinds of events, I think that should be the preferred relationship. This is a town business, and I would like to see preference given to city businesses in terms of sponsoring these events. I don't know, perhaps this was the only person if this was the only entity that offered this, and that's understandable if it is the case.
This is not a city coordinated event, it's simply a request that was submitted to the
So
city.
they
This is
just
not
wanted
a
to
city
use
event.
this area.
No. However, we did have the opportunity, once again, to partner with Kinetic, I believe you're referring
Yes.
to Kinetic, with the Booster Relay, and I actually reached out today to propose, discussions around Mayor's Cup events as well.
Okay, good.
It's out of order. Out of order. I'm sorry.
Okay. Wait, come and talk at the end, okay?
Sorry, it's just a
Right now.
point of procedure. Sorry.
Any further discussion? Roll call?
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Dowdle?
Yes.
Counselor Ensel?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Kretzer?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the Common Council approves Special Olympics New York to hold an event known as the Plattsburgh Polar Plunge at the Plattsburgh Municipal Beach from Friday, November 16, 2019.
I'd like to make a motion to waive the reading and move the resolution.
Moved by Counselor Cresser, second by Counselor Dowdle. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Discussion on the item? Roll call?
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Dowdle?
Yes.
Counselor Ensel?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Kretzer?
Yes.
There's no travel requests at this time. Are there any resolutions for initial consideration?
Yes. Mayor, I have one. May I read, please? Resolved, the Common Council affirms and encourages the mayor's intent to meet and negotiate with representatives from the town of Plattsburgh and any involved school district for up to 30 days to obtain consent to the city annexation of the city-owned property adjacent to Ruger Street per Section 706 of the General Municipal Law. If successful, any such resolution will require approval by the Common Council as well as other potentially involved parties. In the event these good faith discussions with the town are unsuccessful, the mayor will report back to the Common Council and will pursue a formal petition for annexation per other relevant sections of the General Municipal Law.
This move, is there a second? Second by Councilor Armstrong. Discussion? Roll call?
Can we do,
That was just adding a resolution.
Okay, and would you like to also
make a
invoke
motion
Rule
to do?
4?
Rule
I would like to invoke Rule 4 and move this resolution for a vote tonight, please.
Second.
Second by Councilor Ansel. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Discussion on the item? Roll call?
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Dowdle?
Yes.
Counselor Insel?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Kretzer?
Yes.
Are there any other items for initial consideration? Any new business or additional council reports? Councilor Ansel?
I just wanted to give kind of a brief update on the activity last night, the Halloween activity last night at Broadway Park involving Professor Kroll's class. I've heard from at least one neighbor that they were concerned about some of the safety issues and the congestion that occurred. I personally went by last night about 7:15, 7:30, and I can certainly understand their concern. I did speak with Dr. Kroll last night at the event, and I think certainly not to speak for him, but I think he does share some of those concerns as well. I did hear from one constituent that they initially gave out 650 pieces of candy in that neighborhood, ran out of candy and went next door, and their neighbor supplied them with a couple of additional bags. So they expect that they gave out about 750 pieces of candy last night, which is a lot of sugar. But I think that should this event become an annual event, and if it comes before us next year, I think that there are some things that we need to take into consideration, or some changes that we should probably look into. Overall, it was a wonderful event, don't get me wrong, but I think there were some safety concerns. Secondly, along those lines, and I don't know if anyone is here, the class and Dr. Kroll were extremely complimentary and praiseworthy to our DPW. They said they got there and the park was just in immaculate shape. It had been cleaned up. He thinks that they may have dropped off a couple of extra garbage barrels as well with bags. So I just want to give salute to the DPW for a job well done.
Similar vein, we obviously prize being able to live in a city that has a university. We prize the contributions of the professors and the students that help put this on. In the same token, we've had an increase in complaints on the civility after bars close as people make their way back onto campus. And I've asked Councilor Dowdle and Ensel to help construct some dialogues with, or Kretzer, pardon me, and Ensel
I was going to say.
to construct some
I didn't
dialogue
hear
with
that
the
one.
campus on this, because I know that those concerns are shared just as much with the campus at the same time. So we'll see what can develop of that, but I appreciate any help that you can offer, given that your wards are right adjacent to the campus. Any other councilor reports? Seeing none, this is an opportunity for the members of the public to please come up and address the council on any issue of mutual concern. We do ask you to state your name, your address, and if you're representing one group, we ask one spokesperson for that group to please represent the group.
Mr. Mayor, if it's all right, could we revisit the what we were talking about with Fleet Feet and races, and if Jeremy, if you're willing to kind of comment on what it was that.
I'm sorry,
Please come to the floor so that for the people.
Sorry,
in the public.
Jeremy, it was nothing personal. It
No,
was
no,
just.
no, it's fine. Jeremy Brown, Kinetic Running. Sorry for the interruption on these procedures. I just wanted to say that's not why I'm here.
Oh God, I didn't think you were.
They're free to do what they want.
Of course.
That's totally fine.
That was my
It's not a
misinterpretation.
city-run thing, so I do appreciate your support.
Right.
It's something I feel has kind of been lacking from the city. In the time we've been here, I'm actually here to show support for our town's Plattsburgh.
Absolutely. And I apologize for my misinterpretation of that organization's request.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Anybody else, please?
All right. My name is Danielle Erb. I am here to present the Strong Towns petition for businesses, downtown businesses. You've heard enough from me, I think, over the course of this whole thing. So I really just want to, recognize all of the businesses that have put their names and businesses on the line to express their opinion about this. Our petition is strictly about stating our opposition to the $4.3 million of the DRI funds that were allotted to the Durkee Street project, even though there has been little to no evidence of public support for the project all along. The community was given 1 day to come in and vote on specific projects. This project polled at about 1 to 2% support rate at that one event. Despite repeated requests for additional input throughout that process, there were none provided. Yet we see that nearly half of the funding went to this project. So that is why we are putting this petition forward. And we hope that the city will see us as a partner in trying to bring this to the state's attention and call on the governor to redistribute those funds to projects that have community support. And we believe the DRI program was created by Governor Cuomo with the intention of supporting projects with strong community support. That was the whole intention of the DRI project. Unfortunately, that's not what we've seen here. So we would just like for that to be addressed. Additionally, there are lots of other issues that have come up as a result of this project being selected. Parking issues, issues with communication, issues with lack of involvement, and all opportunities that have been given. It seems that what the community has brought to the city seems to be saying their hands are tied and there's nothing that they can do. So in closing, I'd like to just make this short and sweet, and I just would like to list off all of the businesses that have signed this petition. So we have Adirondack Dance, Samet Shop, Pizza Bono, Yama Sushi, Himalaya Restaurant, Hobie's, Dress Code, Sip, T-Nails, Plattsburgh Shoe Hospital, The Green Room, Premium Vapors and Diamond Vapors, Danco Maintenance and Repair, Plattsburgh Hearing, All 4U Salon, Plattsburgh Vape Company, This and That, Once Upon a Book, 20 Brinkerhoff Street, 22 Brinkerhoff Street, Express Mart, All Floors, 20 Below Deli, the Cornerstone Bookshop, Runs with Scissors, Halcyon Massage, Kinetic Running, Fred Villari's, JP Doghouse, Retro Live, Wayward Sound, Grow Buddies, Warren Tire, Allen Booth Insurance, Jolie Nails, Living Well Chiropractic, Arnie's, Almost Anything, Bridge Street Yoga, Grizzles, North Country Food Co-op, Plattsburgh Art Detectives, Aleka's Restaurant, Second Time Around Thrift Shop, The Burning Leaf Tobacco Shop, AES Northeast, AES Properties, The Pepper, A Beautiful Mess, 518 Nightclub, Lake City Legal, Morrison and Miller Insurance, White Brick Inc., which is a building, and there's some building owners as well that have signed, Lamelli's Mexican Food, Leisure Tan, Twisted Carrot, and we have Vignette and Vogue. So that is a total of 58 downtown businesses so far. And growing. We are going to continue to collect signatures throughout the weekend. And we invite anybody that is here to come up and speak on your own behalf as concerned citizens, not as part of the Strong Towns Plattsburgh. We encourage you, anybody that is here in support of this petition, to stand up and speak on your own behalf. And join us afterwards at the food co-op upstairs in the community room, where we will be having a public meeting. There will be food and a letter writing opportunity to write to the governor, and we will be submitting this stuff to the governor's office on Monday. So I'll place a copy of these petitions on each one of your desks here, so you can read it for yourself. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Danielle.
Thank you.
For the last couple of days, the council has had a number of questions and clarifications on what the public process has been to this time. Matt, would you be able to spend a few minutes with us, Mr. Miller, to summarize the public process to this date and some of your intentions going forward for additional public process?
I think this should be the time where we have some more public comment. I think that the right time for this to happen would be after public comment.
It's up to you. It's actually up to the mayor as a presiding officer of the council.
I would just prefer, so in case anybody has any questions on the process, we can have them addressed rather than having the same questions repeated over.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so we have a PowerPoint presentation queued up behind everybody. It gives an overview of the public outreach process thus far for both the DRI as a whole and for the parking plan that we are looking
Matt,
for.
can you hold on? Sylvia, could you maybe flip just one of the lights, please? Thank you. Sorry, Matt.
So this is, one more, please. This is the first set of details for the local planning committee meetings that took place back in 2016 and early 2017. Related to the DRI, there were a number of movie nights involved as well. Next slide, Ethan. There were 4 community workshops with significant attendance, 4 community surveys, 3 different focus groups that were done over the course of, again, 2016 and early 2017. The community surveys are actually ongoing. And this is a breakdown of all of the public outreach events that have been held related to the parking plan for Plattsburgh. As you can see, at the end of 2017, there were 3 stakeholder meetings in September. There were also 3 public open houses conducted by Carl Walker and the city's consultant, John Forster. There was a common council update at the, well, actually right before Christmas of last year. There was a council update 2 months before that in October. There was a public meeting and comment session in April of this year. There was a rough plan presented by the Community Development Office to the City Council early in September. And about 2 weeks ago, the council signed off on a non-bonding resolution to explore various sections of the parking study and start to implement them as we go forward. For continued community engagement, we are about to start conducting and extending invitations to downtown business roundtables, where business owners downtown will be invited to come to City Hall and discuss plans for the DRI in general, for the Durkee Street site, and for the parking plan in small groups in order to get feedback from them on the process thus far and what their expectations are for going forward. There's a streetscape improvements and riverfront access survey currently on the city website, and the link is on the next slide. And the Durkee Street RFP proposal presentation. Again, those are due from developers in 2 weeks on November 14th. Then there will be a review process and consultation with the City Council to determine which of those proposals is in the best interest of the city.
And may I just jump in there?
Yeah.
In conversation with the mayor, it was decided that the council would be the hosts of those meetings with the public, so that input regarding the various RFP projects could be solicited from them at that time. And further, Doug Buttdorf met with us today and introduced the idea of inserting community benefit agreement into whatever final contract is put forward with whatever development seems to fit our needs and the objective of our overall planning for downtown.
And the last part that you mentioned pretty much asserts that we require there to be public input.
Yes.
That's the purpose.
Right. So that we would partner with various stakeholders in order to reach this agreement with the developer.
Okay. And again, a little more detail on the business roundtables. The invitations will be going out. We actually plan to hand deliver them to all downtown business owners within the next week. We'll be having small focus meetings. There'll be a chance for the city to provide current information related to the DRI and any potential parking system changes. It'll also be a time for business owners and businesses to provide their feedback on those plans. The meetings will be held here at City Hall. We'll provide multiple time slots to allow for maximum participation. And again, we'll be sending out those invitations within the next week with a number of different time slots to choose from. And if any downtown business owner cannot make those, we will certainly make accommodations for them to come in when they can.
Matt, question, besides downtown business owners, what about downtown residents? Will they
We're
also
starting
be?
with business owners, yep. And then other constituencies will also be consulted. This is the details of the streetscape and riverfront access survey. Again, the survey is online and it is open until November 9th. We've also mailed out through city utility bills the same survey. To date, we've got about, what, over 100, Ethan?
In paper, at least 120, and online, we're at 150, so we're getting close to 300 with multiple.
Yeah,
over
we got over a week left, so. Next slide. And again, Durkee proposals are due on the 14th. If in the council's determination, any of those proposals are unacceptable, or if, again, no proposals are received, we can always ask for extension to that proposal, to that RFP. And once they're received and graded, in consultation again with the council and public outreach, they'll be presented to the common council for further discussion and to be voted on for approval or denial.
Matt, may I interrupt and ask you the same question I asked you last week, which was, have we had any local developers expressing an interest in this project?
That I've had direct conversations with, no. I could certainly speak to White and Burke to see if they have.
Okay. Is it too late for any entity who wishes to do so to enter an RFP?
Before, until 14.
Oh, no, they still got 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yep.
And there could be more time after that, I take it.
Possibly, yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and these are a few of the concept drawings that were included with the parking study that was commissioned by the Common Council last year. It shows a few different configurations for ways in which additional parking could be found downtown. Again, these are conceptual drawings. These do not necessarily represent plans that the city has. It's just to give an idea of what is possible. This one here is a reorganization of Court Street and the county parking lot at the county building. And Ethan. And this is another option that would create a large lot further down Margaret Street. Basically, we would eliminate Division Street and turn that into a larger parking lot adjoining and also including the Glens Falls National Bank property, which the council last week agreed to sign a purchase agreement for. So plans are moving forward, and this is the final conceptual design, and this shows the way in which additional parking could be found both on Bridge Street and on Durkee Street themselves as the Durkee site development moves forward. It would basically widen out Durkee Street and turn it into diagonal parking on both sides. That would add, just with this sketch alone, about 90 on-street spaces. And it's made explicit in the RFP that the developer has to account for any parking that they would need for their own needs for commercial or residents who might be moving into residential units on the site. So the city will not need to take care of that. We simply need to take care of the 289 spaces that will be disappearing once the Durkee Street is fully developed.
Matthew, just as a point of clarification, you said the addition of 90 spaces. Is that an addition of 90 spaces to what we currently have in the Durkee Street lot?
No, based on the current amount of parking available on Durkee Street as it is now and Bridge Street as it is now, this conceptual drawing would add 90 spaces to that total.
I see.
This
And the
specific drawing.
And
This specific drawing.
And just one other, just as a point of geography, that other option that you mentioned shows the Strand Center for the Arts building and the Glens Falls National Bank building, which was just pointed to by that gentleman, thank you.
Yep.
That would, do you know the number of spaces that would be created in that spot where, when Glens Falls National Bank building is raised?
Just the Glens Falls parcel
Yes.
itself?
Right here.
What was the,
So this map you see right here, it's around 180, but that doesn't include the Glens Falls location, which, based on engineering and other work, you could imagine they would be able to squeeze in considerable more in that parking lot. So we're looking at least probably 200 spots there.
But John said about approximately 80 or to 85 additional spaces.
Correct.
If that went forward.
I guess just what I'm saying is, if that's, you said, potentially how many, 100 and?
That's gonna be around 100, that picture right there is like 175 to 180, but it doesn't count the Glens Falls Bank.
yeah, that basically
parcel.
stops halfway through their
So,
parking lot.
so 190-ish,
Oh,
potentially?
you could probably, yeah, get more.
And then with the 90 spaces on Durkee Street, we're looking at close to
That could
300
possibly make good the entire gap right there
of the current Durkee Street parking
of the
lot.
current Durkee Street parking.
Which means
And
that,
add some.
which means that this parking lot is less than 1 block away.
Yep,
from-
yep, it's
from the
right up
current
that
spot.
little pedestrian mall from Durkee right on the Margaret.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
If I recall from the study, the net increase is 100 more spots than currently exist today downtown.
That includes the Court Street.
Court
Correct.
Street, widening of Durkee and Bridge Street for additional parking, and this location here as
Does
a
that
net
include-
$100.
Does that include raising Trinity Park? I know that was.
No, I think that the council, when he proposed that, I think he unanimously rejected that
Yeah, it's
proposal.
not on the table. Any questions from the council? Okay.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you very
Matt,
much,
can you
Matt.
email me these slides?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll email it to all of you.
Thanks, Matthew.
Yep.
I think that might be helpful to be on the website too.
Yes, it will.
We actually have
Good
that,
idea.
It has
but
been.
not in that format.
Okay.
It's in separate.
That's a
Let's-
user-friendly format.
It is. Let's please continue with additional public comment, please.
Hi everyone, my name is Stephen Guggen. I have a lot of questions that have come up since that presentation, but I've got a couple others that I was wondering about. The first was about how the new parking spaces are going to be funded, because at the parking study, we learned that a plain old parking spot on flat ground, not a parking garage, costs $8,000. And so if we're going to be replacing over 300, we're looking at a bill of over $2 million. So at the meeting, I think it was back in April, we talked about how that was going to be funded, and it was posed that maybe it could be more state grant funding that was leveraged from the initial grant funding through the DRI, which just seems backwards to me, because I feel like the state wants us to fund money from private entities and nonprofits and what have you, but not more money from the state. But maybe it could come from a different department of the state. So I'm wondering if you guys applied for the consolidated funding application to secure funds for this over $2 million project. It should have been put in July, I believe, and if, yeah, you know where that stands. That's one question.
I'd just like to make a recommendation. Community development would have probably all of the answers, or the majority of the answers would be able to find the answers to these questions. So if any speakers that have any questions, if they'd be willing to pass their contact information along to Matthew Miller, is that acceptable?
That's fine.
And then instead of us trying to answer questions that we don't understand or don't know the answers to, his office would be able to do that. And if you could just provide your information to him, then he'll be able to get back to you with all the answers to the questions you have.
What if we don't get a response?
Matthew, will you respond?
Yeah.
So he's being held accountable.
I
Let me know.
I'm willing to
Not
respond.
gotten a response.
I'm willing to respond to that question. We do anticipate applying for additional grants. We have an indication from one state funding agency to help us offset the costs of additional parking. Ultimately, parking, as you know, currently is being paid by the existing building owners downtown. There's a special assessment district that collects somewhere around $80,000 a year for parking and downtown maintenance. So that's one model that could be used to pay for it. Another, it would be used to have the people actually using the parking pay for it. A third model would be beyond the state funding that we've applied and have a likelihood of receiving, having all the residents of the city of Plattsburgh pay for it. None of those decisions have been made yet. We have to make those determinations still, and that's going to be something the council will have to deliberate, see the various business cases for them all. I can tell you also that the consultant in his various visits with us and the council typically recommended doing as other similar communities like Lake Placid and Burlington do, and have a relatively modest fee for people using the parking. Special provisions made for residents and employees, et cetera, and some sort of provision for first hour free, et cetera, so you can go in quickly into the co-op or wherever and do your shopping. So these are some of the ideas that are batted around, but absolutely no decisions of any sort have been made in that yet.
Okay, another question I have is in regards to the building that you agreed to purchase last week. I'm wondering what that building was valued at, and if it was in need of demolition already, or because it seems backwards to be taking a building off of the tax rolls, demoing it so you can have parking spots, and then putting another building up elsewhere. So was it in disrepair, and how much is going to be? How much are you going to pay for it?
So again, this is just why I made the suggestion that we communicate with community development, because this really isn't a conversational time. It's a time for you to address your concerns, and then we get back to you. So just as a point of I feel like otherwise it,
Which will also leave room for more people to be
Great.
able
Exactly.
to express their concerns.
Can I say one more thing?
Sure.
I don't know if I have time. But I heard that it was a concern. I'm a farmer myself. We don't go to the Plattsburgh Farmers Market anymore. We do sell our goods up here. But I've heard through the grapevine that it's a concern that the farmers market was not considered directly in the RFP for the Durkee lot development. So that's just something that I feel like was an oversight, and yeah, just might come up in the future that the farmers will want to be addressed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other individuals like to please come forward?
If there's anyone else who wants to speak about the parking, I'll wait. So if anybody else wants to speak about the parking, that's fine, my copy's there.
I might add on the farmer's market, I think the sense here is that the farmer's market is going to be completely integrated into the DRI, and it's a really high value that I think everybody shares. So
But what
that's-
about its presence as a provision in the RFP? I recall that it was included.
It was, yeah, it is,
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Joel Bogensberger. I came here because my daughter is taking a government class and she has to observe how government runs and is operated. I'll be honest, I've been here, I don't know how many times, I know every single one of you, and it's kind of disappointing that she had to watch this because it was just a mess. The delay, first of all, was just amazing for the executive session you had over something which is basically an introduction of the MOA for the MLD contract. That's not litigation. That's an introduction of an MOA, which is completely privy to the public. You voted on passing this contract, and the public knows nothing about it. And that's completely wrong. And an executive session to introduce an MOA is improper. It's not litigation. I just wanted to emphasize that. I mean, I'm glad that there is a department out there that's being treated fairly. And I'm glad that someone's getting contracts out there. It's good to see. But the other things I wanted to discuss was you tabled the procurement policy. There's really no information out there as to what the changes were going to be. Had you voted on it today, no one in the audience would have known what it was. And that is horrific on its own. The fact that the procurement policy isn't necessarily known by every one of you bothers me also, because you've all received emails from me about it. And an employee handbook. The conditions of employment in the city are negotiated through every union. You cannot put a blanket employee handbook unless you're dealing with management, which is directly for the city. And I don't know. I'm almost embarrassed. I'm almost embarrassed that this was the meeting I had to come to for. And yeah, I mean, I don't even have enough notes. I don't even have enough time. So, but thank you. It was educational for my daughter.
I should note that the employee handbook does specifically acknowledge that it does not override collective bargaining agreements. Any other individuals like to please come address the council?
Kim Ford. I just want to have it on record that I'm aware of all the public input meetings for the DRI because I was at all of them. And I appreciate that the public was included in it, but I don't believe the public was not taken seriously, but our input wasn't taken into consideration for the final DRI allotments. At any of the meetings, no one expressed interest in a large-scale building. On some of the other ones that some of the money was given to, yes, but none of the public wanted the exact large-scale building. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kim.
Any other individuals like to please come forward?
Sue Moore, Oak Street, Plattsburgh. I just had a question regarding the cryptocurrency agreement. Part of the question I have, and you know you can answer it right now, maybe at some other point you can. If you lift the moratorium and you allow more cryptocurrency businesses in, at some point you're going to use up the rest of the quota that you have. So then, even though they have to pay for overages that they incur, if you end up with other businesses that come into the city, there's going to be nothing left for them. So I'm just wondering how that's going to be addressed. I know you can't answer me directly, but maybe next week or when you have your next meeting, we can get an answer on how that's going to work if we bring in more after. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other individuals, please come forward.
Jimmy Drown from Kinetic Running once again. I just want to publicly express my opposition to any form of paid parking in downtown Plattsburgh. You know, I know it's not decided on as of yet, but with the current retail climate, that would be another nail in the coffin for what is already a very hard sell in downtown Plattsburgh. I don't believe there's a lot of support for retail downtown. I think there is support for restaurants, but when someone can hop on Amazon, someone can go uptown and not have to worry about moving their car or, you know, adding that onto the purchase price of something that people are already hesitant about coming down here for, they're going to go elsewhere. I know it's a very popular thing to compare us to places like Saratoga and Burlington and whatnot. And I think that's the wrong way to go. I think a better choice is to enforce the parking laws that we do not enforce at this point. I think using a space in a prime retail location to have a police substation is a very bad idea. It's a waste of money when it's literally a 3-minute walk to the other police station. You know, we're not fostering a retail environment downtown, so and it's extremely hard. We made this decision to be downtown because we felt we could be part of the identity and solution for Plattsburgh. I could have easily been uptown making money. I'm not. It's a hard sell to get people to come down here, and the #1 complaint is parking downtown. And if we enforce the parking downtown, cars are going to be moving. It's going to be way easier for people to park. You know, and just taking a step further, the whole idea of having someone build this big building downtown, you know, selling property to get it on the tax rolls. We've done that with that parking lot down by the marina, and that was a nightmare. I feel like we're setting ourselves up for something like that. If we look at having a downstairs, you know, in this building where it's all retail, I mean, what kind of businesses are going to come and pay the even higher rent, you know, for a place that is not welcoming to retail? We can already see there's a place at 14 Durkee Street. I mean, during your election, you went around highlighting business or buildings that were empty, and that one at 14 Durkee Street has never held a tenant. Never. I mean, we've got plenty of vacant places downtown already. I feel like this initial phase where, you know, you're giving money towards people to help improve apartments, though I don't agree with your funding of the people that you did fund, because I feel like there was a lot of people that were passed over asking for modest amounts. You know, I think that's a step in the right direction, improving what's already here, improving the buildings that are crumbling, and I think just building another big thing just to get it on the tax rolls is the wrong way to do it. It's not supporting the people that are here, it's supporting a business from outside of town to come in, to purchase the property, to have a place that the rent is just gonna go back out of Plattsburgh, you know. I know that's a long ramble, but, you know, we're not fostering a retail environment downtown, and this whole process has been flawed. These meetings that we listed for public support, I've been in business this whole time. Never once has anybody come down to my store. I'm open till 7 o'clock. It's rare that I can actually make one of these things. I can't close my business, so I can come and tell you my opinion. You know, recently there was just a mailing sent out about the next phase. That never happened the first time around. I can guarantee that. I would have seen it. You know, I think this whole process needs to be readdressed for the first phase before we move on to the second phase, because I really feel like the local support isn't behind it. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Any other individuals, please come address the council.
I would just like to state one more concern. There had been rumors floating around about this purchase of the Glens Falls National Bank. And I don't recall it being brought up publicly beforehand, so I'm wondering when that was voted on. Was it at the last common council meeting, or when did that occur? Also, how much did you purchase it for? And I know there are concerns among people that I've been speaking to around town concerning what goes into demolishing a building like that. It can be expensive, and also the structure was built pre-lead paint, I believe, and there's a good chance of asbestos and those things, which can really complicate things. Also, just building on what Stephen had said about that's a pretty large contributor to our tax base right now. There are offices upstairs and the bank downstairs, and so to have taken that off the tax rolls without consulting the voting public is a little concerning. And I've had questions asked of me, is there an expense, like a level of expenditure that's not already on the budget that would sort of require a public referendum for the city to make purchases above a certain amount. So I'll just leave it at that, but those are the concerns that I've been hearing concerning that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other individuals, please come forward. Seeing none, I entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved by Councilor Ansel, second by Councilor McFarland. Roll call.
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Dowdle?
Yes.
Counselor Ansel?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Preston?
Yes.
Thank you, folks.
I do. How are you?
Tell her that.
How you doing? This is me, your senior. Oh my gosh.
Thank you.
I can sign that.
What do you think of me?
You too.
But yeah, I'll be there.
I'm gonna go home and have a drink. Thanks.